Hello everyone. So the bag is nearly finished, believe it or not. So in this video I will show you how to attach the bias binding to the flap of the satchel. So we have got the front, we have the pocket behind, and we have the lining. And for your bias binding you want to have a single fold. That means it's folded like this. If it would be folded again, it would be called a double fold. You want the width of this to be 20 or 25 millimeters, not really broader, otherwise you might struggle on the corners here, on the round corners of the satchel. So to sew this on, we start from the back. You will find out why. And what we really need to make sure is that the curves down here, that you catch every layer in the curves down here. So I'm actually pinning just around the curves a little bit down here to make sure this is going well. On the top, if there's not enough fabric there, we just grab it a bit more into the U. See, we need to squish it a bit over here. For whatever reason, the outer layer turned out a bit broader. So see, that's good that we look at that. So we need to distribute that a little bit and then try to catch it in from either side. See here. So that's really important. Never mind the top here. It's the curvy bit, the lower bit of the flap that you really need to pay attention to. And then we kind of balance that back out, and then we see a bit on this side. Yeah, it seems to have more fabric over here, so that's good. Here and all the way up. And on this side, let's see if it lays flat for us. Yes, it does. Ow. So let's go. So that's your back. Then we take the bias binding, and what you want to do is, so see, it's folded towards the middle. That means if you go along the edge and go exactly in the ditch, you might not have enough fabric to overcome the height of it with all those layers and fold it over and not see the line from underneath. So you need to be very careful here. And I propose to you that you stitch that a little bit inwards from the ditch, so a bit nearer to the edge, just a millimeter or so. That will make all the difference. So here the jeans is quite a bit slimmer, so I will just cut it a bit away to get a good start. And let's have a look at this. I have the sewing machine a little bit squint that you can see it better. I hope I can still sew properly, but we will find out. So just to summarize again, we always have our needle down before we start stitching. We have a jeans needle in 100 stroke 16. Our tension is a little bit higher on 5 because we are going through quite a few layers, so we need more pulling power of the thread. Stitch length 1, stitch dial 1, which is always your straight stitch, and then we want to have 3.5 millimeter as your stitch length, because the more layers you stitch through, the more the feed dogs need to work getting the fabric through. And if your stitch is too short, it's like somebody running with lots of little steps. It just doesn't work right. So you need to give a bigger stitch length so that it can walk over all these layers more smoothly. All right, so as usual, you have your fingers on the threads when you start. 1, 2, 3 in, 1, 2, 3 back to lock it. And now we carefully go around, stitching a little bit earlier than the folding ditch. if you have the function that the needle goes down when you're stopping, then please use it, because it helps you to restart after you have realigned the binding. I disencourage you from pinning the binding on, because you always need to have it just a little bit taut, that it doesn't go floppy on you, which is a big problem with bias binding. And especially now when you go around the curve, you need to tug it a bit. So I show you until down here we are okay. There's no tugging, you just go straight on. So, but now when we want to go around the curve, we need to see, I put my finger here to hold it, and we need to kind of pre-form this curve a little bit. Just tug on the bias binding just a little bit to form it a bit around the curve. And obviously here you have got an arch, because once the bias binding has arrived on the other side, it needs to be able to cover everything. So yes, there will be a bit of an arch, that's absolutely fine. Then you fold that a bit over like a triangle here. Yeah, we can see that, okay? And then you go around. Make sure you have no pleat anywhere, no tug, like so. And then you go again to the next corner, staying a bit inwards. Take your pins out as you go. Come over here. So, and again, before you go into the curve, mold the curve, tug a bit on the bias binding, come around, have it all laid out, then fold the bias binding over to the inside and carefully come around. Make sure you're not coming beyond the ditch of the fold. Here you are. So we are around here, and then we come all the way up. On the original pattern, it has been started on the front side and then folded over to the back and hand stitched on the back. That is how you would bind a quilt. But I propose that in a bag you maybe want it a bit more sturdy. So I'm not such a big fan of hand stitching the binding on a bag, but look, in the original video you have seen how that is done, and on this video you see how I do it, and then you pick what suits you better. So now we have arrived. We'll close our stitch, we take our work out, and we cut the binding off. Then we make sure we have enough thread here to start the next one. And now we go on the good side. See? And because, see, this is now how it lays flat here. And if you fold that over, you just about make it. You see the stitch line is a bit outside of it. And thank goodness we have that little bit extra here, see? But it didn't quite catch my lining, so I need to quickly correct that. Good that I see it. So yeah, you check on the back if it caught your lining everywhere before you go out to the front, because we don't want anything missing. So we just need to take a little bit more to catch the lining, and then we quickly see if we caught the lining everywhere. Other than that, yes, everything is fine. Just this bit is really not fine, so bear in mind you need to check. You don't want disappointment in the end. So what we need to do here then is we need to, and again I show you the mistakes so that you recognize when you do a mistake like that. So obviously on this side here my lining fabric is just really not broad enough. So what I'm doing is if I now stitch once more over here, I really will not have enough fabric to go over and out to the front. So I have to stop trying to cut the corner. I have to physically open it here to where the lining fabric is properly attached again. See, and I use the sewing machine to hold my my project. The presser foot is quite good for that. So see, up from here we are good again. So I physically swing the binding a bit more over, see, and leave a real distance to the edge so that I have enough fabric to come out to the front. So I must really not have had enough lining fabric at all here. But you know, these things happen. They will happen to you too. And there's methods to fix it. So I want that the stitching is at least here, that the lining can't break out. So I need to arrange it so that the stitching comes to about here. That means I need to pull it in so much so that I then have enough binding to come back out to the front, like so. And now it has enclosed the lining fabric, and that's what we want. Good. Let's just cut that off. So let's go to the good side now. So again, see, I think at this stage now I need to cheat a little bit and make the flap a little bit slimmer up here, because otherwise it's kind of visually not attractive anymore, because you obviously see now that the binding comes a lot broader out to the front. But I think it will forgive you us that little bit here. So, and now we benefit from the extra we have, and we can pull it all the way over. And obviously the beginning is in the seam allowance to go into the main back body anyway, so I think we just get away with that. So we will just stitch it down here. So, and now you pull it over. Do you see the stitching here on the from the other side? So that you need to well cover up with the bias binding coming over to the good side. Now that needs to be totally covered up, and you need to do your best to manage that, because that's really not pretty if you see that. And you just cover it up to the end of the machine. 1 2 3, 1 2 3 back, and then we are going. Let me just pull a bit more over. The beginning is a bit tight here now, and then it goes easier. See, and that's why we didn't go into the ditch, because we need quite a bit of height to overcome with the thickness of all the layers, so that we have enough binding to come out here. And then see, there's a little arch, so again I just put the seam ripper in to overcome that arch and scratch it all a bit underneath. And then you go little by little, you fold it over, you stitch near the edge. Don't rush, you have all time in the world. And make sure you're not pulling the binding too much, and make sure it's laying nice and flat. So, and then here you're in the curve, and here in the curve you need to pre-form your curve before you stitch it. So try to pull it so that what comes to the front is all equal distance to the sides, as like same thickness, that's what I mean. Lay it a bit out and then come further down. So don't start doing that too late. Here it's kind of the latest point when you can do that. And then lay it a bit out and see if you get the same width all around. So this doesn't look too bad, and the rest later on the steam iron will do. So let's get our 5 extra hands out and have this firmly in grip whilst we are stitching around the curve. And again, see here the little arches you get around the curve. Keep them flat with your seam ripper so that it doesn't pucker under the needle. That's what this seam ripper is for. You can, as I said before, also use a stiletto which is just the same thing in a slightly posher version. But the seam ripper always works very well, and the bigger seam rippers have a really good long handle, so you can hold it well in your hands. Here you are. We have managed the first corner, right? Let's continue. There. And then we are approaching the next corner. So I would say here is the latest point when we have to take care of the next corner. So, and then we do that again. Pull that it's taut, pull it round the corner, because you really don't want the jeans to arch here, to bobble here in any way. Make sure that's laying flat, and here it seems to be a bit slimmer. So we are pulling a bit more. Here, that seems okay. So now we're going around that curve. So again, here in the curve, it will now start arching. So out comes the seam ripper, and we keep it flat. See? You just need to make sure it's flat. And go around step by step. There, a bit more. Here, and now we need to be careful, because otherwise we're seeing the stitching line underneath. We need to pull that a bit in, and then you can lift and come a bit round, go back down, and continue. Here you are. So that seems to be a bit easier over here. So we just sew along. So that was 1 meter of bias binding. So from 1 meter of bias binding, you have that much left over. So not much at all. And it's good that you have the meter. So if the corners would have in any way a little bit different, then you would have maybe needed a bit more. So this is just fine. And now that's your corners finished. See, there's your corners, nice and flat. And then we give it a good press with the steam iron to get them really flat. And on the back, what happens on the back now? Because it was already attached to the back first, you now have the stitching either on the tape or a little bit next to the tape. So yes, ideally it would be great if it was on the tape or next to the tape everywhere. But for me, the main thing is that it looks good on the front, and we could have perhaps exactly calculated it, how it would look that it is on the tape on both sides. But you know, sometimes if you buy a bag, then it looks just like that on the inside too, and nobody will look on the inside because you look on the outside, and it needs to be absolutely pristine on the outside, and I think that counts a lot more. So usually with that stitching, I get the inner stitching just next to the tape. Okay, and then let's meet to the next and last video to finish that off.